GT Holidays presents the Galatta Plus Mega OTT Roundtable 2023. This has been shot at Mahati Wellness Center in Bandra. The center offers yoga, Ayurveda, nutrition, posture correction and massage therapy.
Holidays nale adu namma GT Holidays da South India's #1 travel brand.
Ariza shirts and trousers.
இந்த festival season உங்க ஜெயச்சந்திரன் டெக்ஸ்டைல்ஸ் ஓட கொண்டாடுங்க.
If somebody met me and said, "Hey, I watched 3 episodes of your show, I'm gonna finish it," I'm like, "Okay, finish it already."
Finish it and then go. You know what? Just for this, when Family Man 3 comes out, I'm going to watch one episode and then no more. And I'm going to message you guys.
I would recommend that you guys watch one episode a day.
Everyone, welcome to the Galatta Plus Mega Roundtable for OTT shows. Streaming. I hope I got that right. But anyway, thanks everyone for making it. I'm going to just begin with, I want everyone to just share what was their favorite OTT show or moment of the year. I'm going to go with two. I'll begin. One I really liked, which was really out there, was Sarbh or Flamingo. It was just not what I expected, and it was so wacky and entertaining, and it just hooked me, and it was made so well. And the other one was The Hard, which had Sonakshi Sinha in it, and that kind of really, I liked a lot of shows, but these two kind of stood out for me. So, and the moment that really stood out for me, and I'm not saying this because Sobhita and Adil are here, is when you take the house. I'm sure it's not a spoiler anymore, but I just love that there is a space out there where we can show a woman like this who's not good, who's not bad, she's just what she is. And the fact that this is a woman that cannot be shown on the big screen, and the fact that she was there on an OTT show it just was like so refreshing to see somebody like Tara. That was my favorite moment. I was like, I cannot believe she did it, and I'm like, yes. So
amazing.
Yeah. So you go, Pushkar. Well, actually anybody can chip in, but yeah, if you want to.
I really liked watching Gulmohar.
Okay.
The film.
The
I
film?
thought I stumbled upon the film and I just thought it was so sweet and like warm, and it felt very intimate the way the film was, and I was just very surprised by it in a nice way. I enjoyed that film, and I tend to really feel for stories that come from the heartland somehow as an audience. So I think over the years, shows like a Jamtara, like I'm more curious about stories that come from middle India or interior India. So, yeah.
Which actually brings me to a point which I've always wondered, why are more shows greenlit than films? Does anybody know? OTT.
For streaming.
Yeah, for streaming.
Actually, see, it kind of makes sense. See, films, they can acquire. There are like lots of films which don't get picked up. So actually you can pick and choose and acquire. Whereas shows are not that way. So films actually, acquisition might make more sense because you have a plethora of things. And I think for a platform, the OTT space, the series, gives them some sort of an identity, like a prestige, which I'm not sure if the film will do. It's still like whatever, like the actor's film or whatever. The series actually gives them a lot more identity, I feel.
Okay.
I think now, at least recent conversations, all the big platforms are looking at films. But the chunk of it is they do want to develop long form content. They're not getting enough of long form content, which is why they're looking at original films. It's a stopgap for them because, as Gayathri said, acquisition will be the main thing for them for films. All their budget goes into acquiring the big films and stuff like that. If they get more scripts, at least this is true in the South, they're trying to produce films there, but they're not able to get enough scripts of that quality which they want to take forward as series. So they've started putting a little bit of budget into, okay, let's make a movie, guys.
Right.
Do you think it's also just more time spent on the app?
Yeah.
A series means potential for season 2,
Yeah.
potential for more time on there.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just that.
It's a more rewarding asset, it seems, for the platform.
For the platform, right.
A series has a natural home in a platform. a theater, I mean a film, for example, the first home is a theater. Yes, it can come directly on a platform as well, and they acquire theatrical films as well. And lately, what the platforms are doing, Netflix started doing it a few years back, and Apple TV has started doing it, is they make films that they release in theaters and eventually put it on their platforms as well, like Flowers of the Killer Moon and all those films. So I think there is but a series has no other home than a platform, right? So you should look at it like that's their number one thing. Besides every other reason they've given, like longer duration, longer viewing hours, and if a platform doesn't show a series, there's no home for it.
The reason I was also wondering is there are a lot of people out there that say certain films I'm going to watch in a theater, and there are other kinds of films that I'm interested in it, but I'm going to wait for it to land up on OTT. So there is already a division being. It's not now being. It has been made. The division has already been made that there are theatrical films and there are home viewing films. So that's why I was wondering, why aren't more films like the films that cannot be typically made in theaters or released in theaters made for OTT? But I guess we answered those questions in some shape or form.
No, I think it's the same thing that Jim said. It is more a more rewarding asset for the platform.
Right.
The viewing habits of audiences is to stay there, and you probably have time for 2 episodes today, and I'll watch it again later. Film you're done in a day, and then you start looking for what do I watch next. You're off to another platform. So the platform would want you to stay there. Series with their franchise of second season and third season provides you that.
Right.
So I think it's a better rewarding asset for the platform.
But I think the one thing which networks would be interested in is a franchisee film format. So
Like
you
Knives
have
Out kind of
like a Knives Out got a second part of it, and Extraction had a second part to
Right.
it. So something which I heard from the legal with one of the platforms is that their investment in terms of marketing a series, right? So it pays off when you have a season 2. What they spend in season 1, they create a recognition for that, the title of the show and stuff like that. So what they spend in season 2 is literally 50% to 40% of what they spend in season 1. But for a film, every film they will have to kind of spend the same amount to publicize. So that was something which I heard from them.
That made sense, actually.
Yeah, but this was typically from a US setup, which has a long history of long form storytelling from TV and from HBO and stuff like that. So in television, usually the payoff is after the 4th season, apparently. So like a Game of Thrones really started making money for the platform is not the word, for the channel at that point of time, after the 4th season.
Right.
Because they've built that IP up, and then people are coming in droves for that. So yeah, I guess series in that way has a better shelf life on the platform.
One of the first shows I'd actually watched is Pushpavalli. It's on Prime. I thought it was so funny, and it was, I think, 25-minute episodes. It was funny, it was easy, like an easy watch, and at the end of the day, I think I would just come back, like it was like a little nugget to consume. It didn't ask anything of me. And then I could just watch an episode a day without having to allocate serious time to it. And there's always, because it's a series, the promise of more, which is enticing.
So, what is...
Also, I think streamers are taking the TV model more than what you said. It's a competition more for TV than for theatre goers and cinema goers. So I guess for all of these reasons, it just makes sense that series are greenlit faster than films.
And your show of
Oh,
the
my
year?
shows. I won't say show of the year, but
the ones that you liked. Yeah.
the ones that are coming to mind just now. I really enjoyed Kora.
Yeah, Kora was.
Yeah, that was
Kora.
amazing. Yeah.
I even enjoyed the episode in Love Stories, which was The Mirror, because it made me feel quite weird.
Yeah.
Strange.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really like those 2 actresses. I love Amrita Subhash and Tilotama Shom. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm guilty of not watching much of TV.
Because you're too busy making it.
So I feel guilty that I'm not working. That's the fundamental reason. I thought about it as to why I don't. I just don't watch movies or series on TV much. It's somebody's watching, I might sit for a bit, or I'll sample it, like Kora came out, I sample it, Lust Stories came out, I sample it. their series, anything that comes out, people talking about it, I just sample it for a bit. Then I'll tell myself I have to write.
Right, but
So-
how do you guys find the time? I mean, it's incredible the output, and in a good way, but like, is it just discipline and time management, or are special powers involved?
No, discipline and time management is an eternal quest. So it's not like it's always there. But I think hard work is there. And the fact that I don't watch series saves me time to write.
Are you on social media?
No.
Okay, so
it's
that
more
also-
of when our show goes out, we put out the posters. Not the stories kind, not the what am I doing today thing.
Not the reels and
No, I don't have time for it. So
all the fun stuff.
So yeah, I kind of made friends with writing a few years ago, where everybody used to detest the whole thing about, oh my God, I have to write. Was the thought process. Just like when we come to India first time, we're shooting in the heat and the whole deal, and we're like, oh my God, it's so hot. So somewhere in Shore in the City, I just draw parallels. In the middle of Shore in the City, I remember like 10 days into it, it was just extremely humid. We're shooting handheld, on the road, small crew. I realized, let me just embrace this. Let me just embrace it. See, bring it on. So what? This is the country I like, this is the country I want to shoot in. So let me embrace it. So from then on, it became easy. Nowadays, we sweat, we shoot, I even pick up camera, shoot on the roads. Doesn't bother because you are really involved in the part. Similarly, I think once I made friends with writing, I take it to holidays too. So my holiday, first half of the day is writing. So we wrote so much over time. And in all the times, the stars made us wait for a year, 2 years, break in schedules. What do you do? Instead of moping, we just wrote. So I think that's what's paying off right now.
You know, I just love that. It's my new favorite phrase, making friends with writing. It's lovely. It's
I look forward to it these days, so yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, a lot of the same things, I would say
The
that.
same
but-
shows?
Huh?
You don't watch shows either?
I haven't watched, any show this year. Like you said, I sampled. I watched one episode of a lot of shows just to understand what the space is.
Anything stand out?
Why night?
Yeah, I watched the first episode of The Heart.
Okay.
I really liked it. So, the fact that I didn't go beyond is absolutely no indication on the show. It's just about
But
me.
how do you do that? Like, something really hooks you, and you're like, I'm just going to drop it. How do you do
No,
that?
it's not like that. Like, it's already pretty late in the night, and I'm sampling it. I'm thinking, this is very good. I should come back to it. But maybe
Something else takes over.
Yeah, and maybe you never find the time to come back to it. So that way, I think, kind of
Amazing.
let
I think
go
this
of
is an
it.
actor's nightmare. It's like an actor's nightmare. And it's like, oh, but they don't see our arc.
No, that's everybody's nightmare. Yeah, I would feel very bad if somebody started watching. If somebody met me and said, "Hey, I watched 3 episodes of your show. I'm gonna finish it." I'm like, "Okay, finish it already."
Finish it and then go.
Right?
You know what? Just for this, when Family Man 3 comes out, I'm going to watch 1 episode and then no more. And I'm going to message you guys.
I would recommend that you guys watch 1 episode a day and spend at least 8-10 days finishing it, because Family Man 2, when it came out, seriously, right? It took a lot of time to make it, and they were in the middle of the pandemic, the second wave. So we were all sitting at home and doing everything remotely. Right in the middle of pandemic 2, it came out, and supposed to start streaming at midnight, but the inside secret that everybody knows, it starts streaming at 8 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
2 o'clock in the night, I start seeing tweets, I start getting messages saying I finished it, when is season 3 coming? Seriously.
I had a question for you guys actually. Sorry.
Yeah.
How do you all feel about the binge culture in general? Because I personally love when an episode comes out every week. So
Yeah.
I have something to
Yeah.
look forward to,
Yeah.
and then it comes out, and I'm excited, and everyone is watching it together,
Yeah.
and I personally love that.
Yeah, no, I'm in between actually. I don't like the idea of watching 8 episodes in a row. It'll bloody. I
forget.
think
Yeah.
your
You
mind
forget
gets
and you're not
messed up.
really engaged. You're just watching it to finish it. The idea is now to finish, and hence the problem of I also said this before, the reactions to a series are a flood into Twitter and social media, right? And they're really, there's a hurry to put it out there. So now you're watching it in a hurry. So I always ignore the first set of reactions that are coming. We have done enough series and followed enough series that you understand the first set of responses are really somebody who finished it fast and said, I finished it, and said, I don't know, I'm not sure about it. It's not better than Family Man, Fuzzies, whatever. So, I'll be like, okay, I'll wait till Sunday.
Yeah, the Monday, Tuesday, people who are savoring it, taking their time, watching it on their own time, I think they end up liking things better than somebody saying, oh my god, I have to finish it before morning or have to go to work, so I better wrap it up, and maybe a forwarding bits, I don't know.
Actually, the Monday is the day when we also look at the comments, not on the release weekend.
Yeah, and also the series is constructed in such a way that you want the journey now. If you think about it as filmmakers, right, there is really no third act for a series. If you think the film third act is not there. Right. There is no climax really we tend to have a climax, but usually you are enjoying a Better Call Saul and you don't know what happens at the end. You know, any of these shows, it just doesn't end. So there is no fulfillment at the end, which also means the journey was what we are supposed to focus on, that this scene, that episode, this character, that subplot is what you're really focusing on. But you're watching it like a film because that's the habit of finishing it.
I think I had both, because on a normal working day, I probably have time to watch one episode of something or 1.5 episodes of something. So actually I do what Jim says, which is like, you know, take my time watching stuff. But last year I was laid up with COVID, and finally I said, let me give Game of Thrones a chance, because I'd never seen it. And somehow when things get too hyped, you don't know whether it's really like, you know, it's like, oh my god, everybody's talking about it, I'm surely going to be disappointed. But then I started and I had like 10 days of like, it was a bad case. So I just ended up watching the whole damn thing, and that's what I did, because I was in
7 seasons over 10 days.
8 seasons.
It's just like I was like addicted, you know. It was like, oh my god, now I see what everyone's talking about, and somehow that show just took over me. I was like possessed by
Lucky you. So were you going around talking in Old English for a few days?
I know, but suddenly I understood, oh, so now this happened, that's why they're talking about the Red Wedding and this and that and all that kind of stuff. Suddenly everything was like, so, but no, normally I never get the time. So but that was because I was literally in isolation or whatever it is.
Now you can catch up an old show. I haven't caught up on Game of Thrones because I missed the bus then. And it's too late now. Only if you get COVID can you watch.
That's the takeaway from this discussion.
Taking off of what you said, right? Even this 1 week format is painful, man.
Like, yeah, like
actually, one episode a week is honestly painful for me. I prefer pacing it. Yes, maybe one a day, give a day break. So I want all the episodes to come at the same time, but I'll pace it myself. I don't like to binge, but I don't want to wait. I don't want to watch the same show for 2 months. I would have forgotten what the first episode, who the character is.
Especially when you love the show, no? Like you finish 3 episodes and like the next one is coming after 1 month.
So this happened with a show called Gen V, which is on Amazon.
Gen V,
So we didn't realize that all the episodes were not out. We started seeing it 1, 2, 3 at 12 o'clock in the night. Then we realized, what? The 4th is not there? And it's going to come next week. So we would like to pace it in our control.
We usually watch 2 or 3 episodes. I mean, we watch a lot of stuff. We watch almost everything. Actually, I think of late, The Last of Us was probably a
Last of Us,
That was fantastic,
Wow.
There you go. You asked me my show.
Last of Us.
You actually watched the whole thing?
I ended up watching it. Thanks to the fact that somehow I really.
So if they make it, you watch it, but if we make it,
that's one show I watched.
Okay.
Have you guys played the game? Anyone played the game Last of Us?
No.
So all of the cold openings are separate from the game. You've never seen anything like that part, and the second part is more or less how the game
every episode
except
has
for
that,
some episodes.
the game. No, actually, except for
that one episode. Yeah.
Everything else had that game feeling in it when they go through the zombie. I don't know if I for people who have not watched
fungal
it.
infected zombie.
So when they go through that, it's like literally frames from the game. I mean, I remember seeing these frames like crawling out through that tunnel and the door being blocked and all that was exactly from the game. So that recall was there, but I don't think Gayathri has not played it. But
that was super. Actually, but we watch all shows. I mean, Indian shows.
So what are you going to pick for this year?
So that's why it makes it more difficult. I mean,
pick one. Just
see, so it is like the recent ones. Generally, also, I mean, we are waiting for that, and actually, we really enjoyed their shows. Actually, I told.
Actually, Guns and Gulab, the opening sequence was something which we really liked. I thought it started the one with the kids and the first
the whole
5 minutes of episode 1. I thought was a great start to a show which then connects back to this idea. So that I thought was a brilliantly written bit also.
Right.
I'm the worst audience to have, very honestly. I hardly watch stuff, but this year
is
I
a
think
collection of people talking about OTT and doesn't watch OTT.
It's not us.
all my friends complain and they give me threats that they wouldn't watch mine, and I'm like, I'm not complaining. But yeah, if I have to choose one, I would say Kora. That also made by a friend, so he should be happy about that. Yeah, and Kora was really something. I was, and I keep saying this to Randeep, who directed it, and I've known him since 2005, and I'm like, I never thought you had the sensibilities to do this, and I'm really like, I used to keep saying this to him, and was really amazed at how it was put together. Kora would be one of the top shows that I like this year.
Right.
Hardly seen any, but yeah, one of those that I've seen, I think Kora would be.
Since Sacred Games broke out and showed that this is a valid way to watch things, have we seen any patterns in this is what the typical OTT viewer likes to consume, or is it all over the place? Because that's happened in the US, because you get every kind of show, every genre, subgenre, whatever it is. How is it here?
South is even more a nascent market. I mean, at least I think Bombay, like past 5, 6 years, 7 years. So South, I think actually our show was the first big show.
Sural, yeah.
Yeah, Sural was. So I think the data is not yet fully there. I mean, which is actually a good space. But in terms of platforms, I mean, the weather keeps changing. I mean, suddenly it'll be like thriller will get all the budget, then suddenly one young adult phase will happen. So those, I mean, I'm sure they have data, but yeah, that just keeps.
The point being,
I
it's
think
still
they're
too young a
more in
market.
this thing of we have so many shows in this genre, but we are missing this. So rather than knowing that young adult does well, they realize, oh, we don't have young adult shows in India, so let's make a few. So I think they maybe operate on that basis.
But then once something starts, it feels like many around that come up simultaneously.
Yeah.
Like for a while, this young adult, campus life, school life, everyone was making a show like that.
Exactly. I think that's the thing. Like there were no such shows, so everybody said we want those shows, so they greenlit a few. Each platform greenlit a few, and before we realized 2 years later, they're all on there now. We're watching too many of those.
The
Same thing happens
one
to
is crime thrillers. So
Right.
that is the staple. It's the meat and potatoes of any streamer. They really want love stories, but nobody seems to be writing that. We can't write it. You guys should.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a good love story
No,
series
there
in
is
ages.
only love story I can think of is Normal People.
Yeah.
Normal People is a really, really mature. That was a good one.
Yeah.
I haven't finished it, but
There's actually a show called Love.
Yeah,
Love is great.
Judd Apatow,
Also
I
good.
think,
Yeah.
one of the
And such weird protagonists as well.
Yeah.
Unlikable.
Very
and-
unlikely.
Yeah.
What is he, like a sound designer? That's him, or is
No,
something?
he's
I
a
can't remember, it's
tutor.
the one with the
He's a-
big
Oh,
nose,
he's a
right?
tutor.
The-
Yeah, I know.
He's a child artist
He
tutor.
works. Yeah, he's a tutor who works in Hollywood, but he's on the fringes of Hollywood. Yeah.
One of the things when OTT came out was that at that time a lot of people were saying, finally here's a way to do things that are not being done on the big screen. Avinash is smiling. I think he knows what's coming.
No, please complete your question.
No, you want to say what?
No, please.
Yeah. Have we really, done that? Or are we just following what's on screen? Like he said, the thriller or whatever it is. Is it just an extension of that, but in more detail? For example, Rocket Boys had a lot of science in it, right? It's like this level of science was never discussed on films, and we don't even make that many films about science.
Right.
Maybe Nolan can make an Oppenheimer and kind of do, but in India typically, apart from rocketry or one or two others, we focus more on the human. Yeah, Mission Mangal, but that's more about the human element or whatever. This was like hardcore science was coming out of it. So, has there been some kind of clutter breaking that OTT has done? In terms of showing what is not there on the big screen?
Firstly, to talk about the science, what I really enjoyed about the Rocket Boys script and what I think we kept pushing for in discussions with Abhay and with Nikhil is that it should never feel like a science lesson. If it feels like a science lesson, it's boring, it's dead, it's over. So if any discussions about science are coming up, it's because somebody's desire in the scene to solve a problem requires them to mention those facts. I love that because whether you understand the science or not, you understand the importance of why the person is talking and why they're pushing in this particular reason, and they're bringing it up to correct somebody else, or if somebody's saying, no, we don't know anything about it, it's like, what about this? You know about this, right? So it becomes about the battle between the two people and not the science necessarily, which is a good vehicle for allowing some science to
come in,
be there. Because in my opinion, you should never be watching a lesson.
You shouldn't.
Purely
but
a
I'm
lesson.
saying,
So in terms of the clutter breaking thing, my thoughts on it is that there's always one thing that comes, it's clutter breaking, then the many copycats that kind of jump on that bandwagon, like that's going to continue the clutter breaking, as opposed to just doing a new show in a new field, making unlikely heroes pop up, people you wouldn't otherwise associate with a sexy, slick, fast-paced, exciting show. I think that's just kind of how it does.
So there is the question of economics in this, right? So if you want to do a large show, then it is going to be as close to mainstream as possible. Mainstream storytelling, which is what we have seen in cinema. You can do small
when
shows.
you say large, you mean budget-wise?
Budget-wise,
Okay.
budget-wise. Or if you need certain artists and you need a certain scale of the show, then it's going to be closer to mainstream. If you're doing a small show, you can actually go all over the place. You can be inventive. But every time one of those fails, that door keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. In fact, in the US, that door has disappeared with the OTT and the broadcasters. Truly different shows are not happening anymore in the West. India still has a little more scope because we have not failed enough with those shows. US has failed miserably with a lot of those shows. So now, like a show like The Last of Us is a very, very mainstream show, though it's set in a different world and all that. It has all the beats of being a hardcore mainstream film. So that is now there in the OTT platforms also. So the point is, nobody ever thought that OTT is going to be the space where you can do all this hardcore stuff. Because this is not a small number game, it is a large number game. It was a misconception to start with, that idea that this is where all the experimental stuff is going to be. I still think the biggest experiments in filmmaking is still going to happen in theatrical cinema, because that is where somebody decides, like, I'm going to take the risk, and it's one producer, one director, one actor who says, hey, it's okay, I'll take this risk kinds. With the streamers, there are hundreds of people involved in any decision making, so it is going to be more mainstream than what we thought it would be.
Right. Why did you smile?
Very well said.
I think
I had a different thought on it, but go on, go on.
Yeah, you know, that whole idea that we think that it changes and it doesn't change at all.
I'm not saying I'm not being that pessimistic either, but has it is what I'm trying to say.
I'm not being pessimistic, but if you look at it, how it started off, I still remember, you know, I hadn't got an opportunity to do a theatrical till that point. I was looking for work, and OTT were coming in. It did not break in India until COVID really happened, right? So it's something that created a scenario space for people to spend their time, because there was nothing else to do. We used to watch one film a year, a month probably. Now we watch 3 a week within span of 2 to 3 years. And it's the technology that has really done whatever it has. It's not that the makers and creators have done something. It's almost like, banana bhi itne content chahiye, please make stuff, and you keep greenlighting stuff and it keeps getting made. The problem here is, as the OTT platform, they want to add subscriber base in the country. But what do we really consume? We are talking about Last of Us, we're talking about international shows that we sit down and watch here. We see how many Korean shows are being watched here. But none of us have the vision to say, okay, we can reach to 200 countries with this OTT platform. It's not just catering to the people of India, but there's no thought of creating bigger markets for ourselves. To have, once the market increases, we can increase the budget, there will be a justification of it. Right now, what I understand, 20-25% of your audiences still come from outside India. And if that is there, why can't we have our own stories, palatable to the world, while we can consume and sit down and consume it? Otherwise, this platform, for me personally, I just look at it as something that caters to television audiences, earlier there would be men who would be working till 10 outside. They didn't have a chance to follow Indian television shows. Now they have a platform where, and which is why there's so many crime shows being made, because men sit down and watch this. So that's the demographic, that is what is dictating all what is happening around. But I don't see any vision around saying, okay, we want to take this forward and say we want to create markets outside India, and because we reached to 200 countries.
Right.
Never in the history of our industry did we have this distribution system to 200 countries. So I personally feel if we stay where we are, it seems to become a television show like hafte mein ek episode aayega. A weeklies that would come on television and you would sit down and watch a weekly. That's what my feeling is. Maybe it's a bit cynical there.
So that there's a term for that. It's called TV Plus. So streamers are actually using this term which says it's TV Plus, which means that it's slightly better than a serial.
I mean, actually,
There is a term which they actually use for that in terms of like, what are we going for in this? It's TV Plus.
actually, when how we got lured into is cinematic TV. That was the idea then. I mean, that was like, so you make these. So see, large format storytelling is challenging, as in writing for it is completely different from. So that is actually very exciting for us, and we watch a lot of shows. So that is very exciting. So, but that, so like what he was talking about, no, that whatever that cinematic quality, that reaching out, if you start getting short-sighted and just do TV Plus, then you are actually killing the market.
Yeah.
You have to do those like big cinematic shows. I mean, that's what these guys started with. I think that's when it will grow.
Yeah, it
those
started
200
off with
companies.
that,
Yeah,
and then
so-
it's just now cater to the B tiers, C tiers, like it has always been with theatricals. But now you have to add subscriber space, so you start making content that will reach to these.
But I think eventually we should reach there. I think what has happened is because of this COVID, everything has gotten a little skewed. The growth was not supposed to be this fast. It is a 10-year time period which you should have looked at. Now suddenly it's happened in 2 years, and now the whole space is very confused on what is the growth trajectory. How are you going to get more subscribers? You had all these subscribers coming in during the pandemic, and then nobody else after that.
Right.
So now, like, how are we going to get new subscribers is what all these streamers are looking for.
Right.
This should have happened, say, 5 years, 7 years
I
after
think,
they
yeah,
started
it's
to
all
get this
still
kind
too-
of base. It happened way too quickly, and I think it will set itself right. We hope it sets itself right, that our content can reach across the world. But
I just feel like there are many Indias within this India. I am more recognized for my work in Indian diaspora in London than in Kanpur. There's no right or wrong. While I feel like while the desire to reach a global audience should remain, India's digital population is really growing, and I feel like even if people don't have subscriptions, they watch things on Telegram or whatever medium. So I feel like more people getting used to the idea of watching things outside of a theatre is, I think that's also the intention, to make shows that are more heartland, more. I watched their film they produced called Cinema Bandi,
Yeah.
which is amazing to me.
Right.
I'm like, there are so many people who really connect with stories like that because it's stimulating but also comforting. I feel like we watch things for different reasons, and all kinds of content should coexist. I'm a space junkie, and I was so thrilled that Rocket Boys happened because content in that space did not exist.
Yeah.
Yep.
Would I only want to watch that? No, I also want to watch something else. I feel like content made for like this idea of like unifying things into one language that can be sold for the global audience, I don't feel for it at all. I feel like India is like, I don't know if I can call it a union of states, but we are so many different cultures that I feel like it has to be honored, and the more native something is, the more special it is as a story. This general Angresification is not something.
No, actually,
don't think we do
no,
that.
see,
What
actually,
do you mean
the
by,
Korean shows, I mean,
Yeah, we're watching everything
there's a show called
around the world,
Moving
right?
out on Disney Plus.
very, very rooted. I
It's
mean,
a
it's not
superhero
like,
show, but you wouldn't believe the Asian values in that. It's all about parents and children, and it's so Korean a show, and it's doing extremely well in a bunch of markets. They have not made it the equivalent of a Marvel or the equivalent of a DC. It's a very, very Korean sensibility kind
Actually,
of show.
most of those things which break out are all pretty culturally.
Even Everything Everywhere All at Once, eventually it's about a mother accepting
Yeah.
her daughter or the family, you know. And, so I do agree with the more local it is, the more authentic it is to that locality, the more universal it also is simultaneously.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask, because I hear this a lot, and what you were saying as well about the tier 1 versus tier 2, tier 3, and people always put this versus, you know, it's like a versus each other. My question is, why can't it please both? Why can't it please all? I'm not saying that people, of course, it'll be subjective, of course, you know, different people will like different things, but why do we set up a distinction versus this is targeted for tier 1 and this is targeted for tier
Never
2 and
understood.
3? Huh?
Never understood that.
Yeah.
It's what I'm also trying to say is put us on the menu. If you're there in 200 countries, if we have shows which have a vision that okay, we are taking a local story from here. When I say palatable, it doesn't mean Englishfication of a show in a certain way, or but you're saying it's a story which is palatable. Like, मैं butter chicken खाता हूँ London में. It's a palette that is there for everyone. There is a certain reason that we consume so much of. Most of the shows here are consumed from the West. There's a huge popular culture that is coming up with K-pop and Korean shows, and you see how it's getting affected.
So on that note, Korea went behind that idea. So they started selling their culture from 98, 99, right? So
Needs
it
a
was
time,
South Korea especially packaged all their cultural skills and have been selling it for the past 20 years.
Yeah.
Only now are they seeing the benefit of that. This movement was a government decision which started in 98. And they said Korean music has to reach out, Korean drama has to reach out, Korean theatre has to reach out. Now some of the best ballet performances are coming out of Korea.
Yeah.
This was an institutional move to make sure that Korean culture is accepted throughout. We have not done that. I mean, I think now maybe there's a little more movement towards that, but it can't be just one show which is doing it.
Absolutely.
It has to be a whole culture which is, and you're not dumbing down the culture for another audience.
Absolutely.
You're taking
Absolutely.
your culture and saying, hey, this is the way we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
And Korea did that beautifully. And before that, the Spanish culture, which comes from not Spain, but the Latin American part of Spanish culture, was very well packaged and sold to the rest of the world by, you would think Americans, but it was actually the Latin Americans who said that, okay, we need to spread out kinds. So these are not things which happen by themselves. There is a very clear, cohesive move by the government to sell this. Which, if it starts happening, because I think there are a lot of takers for Indian exotica right now. Now, when that turns to Indian culture, that would be the stepping point. Otherwise, it's only the National Geographic, the yoga, and all that which gets sold. Try to sell Indian people, then maybe we'll see that.
Indian stories.
Indian stories.
Yeah. No, actually, you know, a point that Jim made, tier 1, tier 2, whatever, I think it comes from the films, because it was traditionally assumed that if you show something very westernized, then it's only the A centers that are going to consume them. And if you show somebody like, you know, somebody from like the city you mentioned, Kanpur or something like that, it would be consumed more by that. I think that's where it comes from, because typically, if you made Made in Heaven into a film, they would immediately say it's a very niche A center Bandra film or something like that. You know, but despite the fact that the beats of the film, which is the friendship that you share with
So universal.
Arjun or whatever, they're not anything, you know, different. You know, the relationship that you share with your husband, ex-husband, whatever it is, what your friend does to you by having an affair with your husband. These are not things that are by themselves different, but because they come together in a way, and because there's a bit of, I don't know what word to use here, but class sounds like the other shows are not classy, but you know what I mean, right? There's a certain refinement in the gaze.
Elitism? Elite.
Whatever, because they're all rich people. So it gets clubbed under something that is a center. I think that's what typically happens, and I think it's a leftover from the film classifications. Is that something that you agree with?
Earlier he wanted to disagree with something. I really want to know what it was.
Oh, disagree, not disagree, a counterpoint to what he was saying was that, should I answer this one?
Both.
Okay. He was saying earlier about experimentation or something new that's happening in film. I really feel you can't beat series for experimentation in every possible way, from the way you shoot it, the way you act, the way you explore a character, subplots, ideas, themes. We haven't seen this much in our cinema in a long time.
Yeah.
Just their series itself would have taken some 20 different things that you haven't seen in Indian cinema before. So every one of us, theirs, ours, we're all trying to be something special, something unique, break the boundaries in. I think we're looking, when you say clutter breaking, we're looking at a big picture. Is this show clutter breaking? Maybe it might not fall in the definition of clutter breaking, but the elements in it, the ideas in it, the themes, whatever we're doing, the craft in it, all these things I think are quite innovative and boundary pushing for me. Any good show you pick right now, they'll have something to offer. That wasn't there before, because you're driven by Friday and you're driven by a star. A cinema bandi cannot make it to theaters, or any of these films will not be, like you said, Made in Heaven will be a Bandra film, right? So I feel we're
I said it will be classified as a Bandra.
Yeah, will be classified like a A++.
Yeah.
So we had a film made that was A++. So like, okay, it's only running in South Bombay. My point is, I feel this medium is amazing for storytellers and for consumers, that you haven't seen these themes, these characters before, according to me. Hence, it is the most innovative way to explore storytelling, is what I was trying to say.
I think what the point that I was making is, yes, compared to the cinema we've been watching when series came, was it a completely different beast that it looked like experimentation in the traditional sense? Yes, you don't need the same trappings of cinema, you don't need the songs, you don't need the marquee heroes, everything changed. But I think the point here is, shows are also now going so big and so mainstream.
I got that.
That in the world of shows, see, a show will never be the Avengers film, which has a certain formula, but in the world of shows, it'll always be a Stranger Things, right? So it also, there is a certain element of, this is the most masala, most wide-reaching show that gets pushed, as opposed to if you make an experimental show by show standards, it'll still remain experimental, unless it breaks out. So the challenge is the studios would prefer that. They would prefer that.
I'm saying the
Right,
OTT streaming space allows for everything, according to me. Cinema doesn't. You need a star. 90% of the films will make it only if you have a star, or if you have a certain trappings or a packaging. Only then can you make it into theater. Really, most of the films will not make it. Most of the stories will not make it.
Right.
But the streaming space allows for everything. Yes, as the streaming space becomes bigger, you will see monotony, you will see repetitions, because you're also wearing the same glasses. You're wearing that glasses that are looking for similar shows. But you look at platforms that you don't even watch sometimes, they might be experimenting the hell out of it.
That's a great point, yeah.
So we are not. We're just used to the 3 platforms we watch. But there's a lot more. And also falls into the category of, we were pushed into, how did the streaming space start? Like always, India is always leapfrogging, right? We go from STD directly to a cell phone.
Yeah.
We don't have in-betweens. We go from, we never had HBO, we never had cable, we went from daily soaps to series.
Yeah.
My aunt still calls my show serials. So I'm
that's
very heartbreaking.
Serial बहुत अच्छा किया था.
Serial, I was like, oh my god, really? So we jumped so much. There was time. It takes time to catch up.
Yeah.
We
All
had
this has happened only in 5 years.
and we had to figure out our own wheel. Who knew how to write a show? The Family Man had to be invented from scratch. It's not like there is a book or a manual. I was Googling though, what is a Bible and all that. But you had to figure out each one. So you really have to catch up. Catching up has happened. And then the experience of making serials so much that it's content, amount of content. If you go in that game, yes, you will get mediocre stuff. You will get content. You will get, tons of content. That's not what we are talking about here, right? We're talking about how the better shows, where we are trying to push cinema, make better cinema. So yeah, I'm talking from that point of view.
There's a, just to extend your point, whenever these Allmax or these media reports come out and they say these are the top 5 viewed shows of the week or something.
Right.
And I'm like, there's a show like that? Because like you said, many of us, maybe in this circle, stick to the majors, right? Like, and maybe one or two more. Like, okay, I want to watch Rocket Boy, so I'm going to Sony Live, or maybe because you've heard of these.
Right.
But there's a whole population out there consuming shows from, like, which we, like, many of us haven't even heard of.
Yeah.
It's like the volume is so much. It's just that we hear of the better marketed shows, maybe. I don't know if that's the
Better marketed shows and better shows also surface slowly.
Actually,
Right.
yeah,
At the
better
end of
shows.
it.
I mean, not just marketed.
Better shows surface and it's all.
But are you
under
saying that the better
but
shows
it's
only
also
come in the
function of
majors?
the-
Sorry?
Are you saying that the better shows only come in the majors?
No, not really. No, like you said, sometimes a channel was made by one show. There was a platform existing and nobody was subscribing. One show comes up and changes the subscriber base.
Scam did
Yeah.
that for Sony.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like
so
Scam did that, Asur did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Suddenly, not that they were small players to begin with, but
Right.
the channel suddenly
Yeah.
Got the
it.
profile. Yeah.
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 and about the monies, the problem is that when you do smaller, yes, I was agreeing to the fact that smaller budget films lead you to experimentation. Makes sense, you have a bigger budget and you want bigger viewership. But even then, I feel, at least since we work with so like movie stars in a way. I don't know what else to call it. What's a politically correct word?
You're a movie star.
They're movie stars.
Avinash is a movie star.
Coming
Sobhita is a
in,
movie star.
they all came in to do something different. They all didn't come in to say, I want the same movie that got me a big hit last year. Nobody's came in, at least to us, saying, hey, I want to make another super hit kind of a film. So it's a great space, inviting stars to come and be actors. So
What you were saying earlier also about the
But
experimentation.
if they're coming to you, they know it's a hit.
no, I'm saying it's acting, right? Every star also longs to act and show his acting, her acting prowess.
Like they say, a series is an actor's medium and a writer's medium, right? It's not. You can fool the audience maybe for 1.5 hours and just give enough thrills to make it work.
Fair
You
enough.
cannot do it for 10 hours. Same with an actor. So they all know that, I want to get the actor out. Yeah, the star is anyway successful, but I want to get the actor.
I think the idea of sorry.
Sorry.
When you were talking about the leapfrog process, right?
Yeah.
I always think about that long form storytelling is its own thing, and it's relatively new in our country, relatively nascent. So not the serial side, but specifically the series long form type of storytelling. So I imagine that the experimentation process should continue, and while people get more confident and comfortable with long form storytelling, potentially over seasons, it will lead to more potential experimentation with, like cold opens, how you end a show. Do you need the climax? Do you need the 3-act structure still? Is the 3-act structure coming over 3 seasons? Is it coming over 1 season? All of these kinds of things I feel will keep being played with.
It will, if for us, if the Family Man is a success, the next thing is another platform says, give me something like the Family Man. And for example, we did with Netflix first show, and we said, I want to do this. I want to do an extremely pulpy show, absolute quiche, just pulp, nothing to it. I don't know what the message is, So they were like, sure. The fact that they took the risk and say, what, it is a big budget series, but we are interested in not doing the Family Man or a Fuzzy. Let me just do pulp. And they're okay with it. And then, like he's saying, it's experimentation within that. Usually people, like small things. For example, people don't like the bars on top, CinemaScope, right? You don't want on a small screen because you want the whole TV to be occupied.
Or your phone.
Yeah, so we said, no, I want to shoot on anamorphics because we're shooting an old school pulp thing. So they said, like, sure. So the idea is the conviction that drove us, and the final episode in Guns and Gulabs is a feature film. We made a interval in between, like an intermission in between, like you said, playing with the structure. So it allows you to, if we get, I don't know, we be satisfied with the success, then you keep repeating it, that's no fun. The idea is to getting into this is to experiment and try and do something new each time.
Right. Avinash, you were going to say something.
I forgot my thought. I think I was probably talking about the idea of stars and how it has changed with OTT, or what the expectation is. Like probably we would call a star someone who gets seats, bumps on the seats in a theater, and probably for an OTT is someone who could engage you enough to not let you go, because you can actually just use a finger to move to another platform, another show, and if you're able to engage someone else and make them stay rather than get them there. Like OTTs, I would like to believe the only two ways that they would make money is by adding subscribers or keeping the subscribers. These are the two basic models. So either your show is good enough to get a lot of subscribers, or has a repeat value that people stay and come back and do those things. I think this is where we have not been able to make a distinction, because we don't know the numbers, we don't know how it works, what is really happening inside. It's just a general perception, and then perception building is a different ball game altogether, where we are not able to blur what is fact, what is fiction. So I think we all, most of the times, are in a space of unknown, of not knowing what is happening, hoping that the vision that we are talking about continues and grows, and we are able to.
But you do feel it, right? Like the thing about it is there is no numbers to say if the show is a hit or doing well or not. You get a sense, but eventually over time you do feel it. Like you go somewhere and oh man, I really loved you in that one. You're more likely to get that for your the latest show that you were in than for perhaps a movie in that sense. You know?
Probably. But I'm also feeling that a lot of good shows that are good shows haven't reached out for whatever reasons they are, because there was something else that came out at that point of time, or they kind of died down because there was no face or no one was talking about it, the money was not put in. So there are XYZ reasons that are already playing, which were not there earlier. It has now suddenly become, like earlier they were just, the stars were not in this game, now they want to cover it. They want to be playing the game altogether.
Where the money goes.
Where the money goes. So, which is why, like I said, it doesn't change, it changes, but it just becomes the same eventually, because that's how we balance it out. That's the equilibrium that we figure out. The only hope that we have is if we could have a vision and take it forward, like 10 years, we have a flourishing industry, if we could have a cultural impact on the world with our stories, and now we are in a position to do that because we have that distribution system there already. That would be something I really hope happens from here on. 5 years, 10 years from here on, we have Indian technicians, Indian writers, Indian actors doing stuff recognized in the world. But we are still struggling with pan-India, unfortunately. So,
so Gayathri, when Danish Khan, the head of Sony Live, last year at a panel conference, he said that once Rocket Boys began, they found that about 50% of the audience was coming from the south. But then why hasn't there been enough of a concerted move to make more southern shows? Is it because the southern audiences are watching the shows being made out of Bombay, or what is
you're talking just about Sony Live or in
no generally why is whenever you talk about a southern show, like it's just now, Pawan made something, you guys are making.
One thing is from whatever platforms you've heard, see, at least Tamil, they're actually getting some good 8-episode shows. Telugu, they're not actually able to even identify good shows as such.
Is it because they're not getting the pitches?
See, here it is at least some 7-8 years kind of industry,
Right.
So people are still cracking the system of writing for OTT. I think that is one this thing. See, this there's a lot of audience from south and all that is there, but again, film, it is kind of transcended, but otherwise it is still a regional market. So that will come up. Somewhere in the conversation, it will come up. It is still maybe you can attract this audience, but it's not like a all India audience. That will come up. But right now, they are pretty much active in putting together a bunch of films. Actually,
so it will all come out in the next 2-3 years.
Right. So
there's so many in development, in production, close to release. Over the next 2 years, you will see the
Actually, Amazon started. Now Netflix is also going hardcore. They've been developing shows, and they're all just going to start shoot kind of thing.
Right.
Hotstar, Sony Live, all of them have at least 6-7 shows to release.
They've all started their offices now. So that
that's a start. That's a start.
So that process of writing and all that development is happening.
This thought struck me because when I saw Jubilee, Vikram's show, it was mounted on such a scale. I was like, on the one hand, there's this budget for this kind of a show, and on the other hand, there are practically no southern shows, with the exception of there's a handful of shows, you name them. So that's why I was very curious about the how is, so the thing is, because this is a more developed market, you're saying that
The thing is, they're setting up infrastructure there, and like
Slowly
so
getting-
it's just like
I think it starts
it's just
with the writing.
yeah.
I mean, like what Raj was saying in terms of leapfrogging. So we don't have long form storytelling as an existing writing structure in our South industry, right? And Hindi also didn't have. It's just that with Sacred Games and a little before that, so a little bit of head start is there. And even before that, Anurag did something, which was Yudh. With,
Yudh.
Yeah.
Yudh. So I guess long form storytelling, that is the first one which started in India. You were there.
Yeah.
So we didn't have that at all. So we didn't have the experience of say watching a Sopranos or The Wire or Game of Thrones when it started and stuff like that. So suddenly we have long form storytelling, which is not the television writers couldn't move over here, the cinema writers couldn't move over here. So that's where it got stuck for the first couple of years, 21, 22 kinds. Now a lot of the youngsters who are exposed to shows from across the world
And
are
also-
approaching us with scripts which are there, which needs a little bit of mentoring, but we don't even have that system of enough people with knowledge to mentor these writers.
And the platforms are also setting up. I mean, they had offices here, so that they also started a little late. I mean,
I think
after
they
setting
started
up.
off setting up shop in Mumbai
Yeah.
in Hindi. Like when we were in talks to Amazon to make Family Man, which was before even the first show had released anywhere in India, they were operating out of a tiny 2-room rented office, like they had to rent the conference room. That's how small it was. And of course, a few months later, they had an office, and Netflix took another year or two to even set up office in Mumbai.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, they were operating
Yeah,
from LA and
something
UK
like-
somewhere else. So that move, I guess they're here now, bigger industry, I guess more people, and so once they've spread their tentacles here, then maybe they move down
Which I think
south.
is a natural progression.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
within the South, they first started with Tamil.
Tamil,
Then they're
then,
getting
Telugu.
into Telugu, which is a more difficult market to crack as such. Kannada and Malayalam are in the next round. So Kannada and Malayalam series you'll start seeing maybe 2 years later.
Okay.
They are slowly getting into development. So we still have to look at where OTT is in 2027, 28. That's when this is going to form as an industry. We all have the first mover advantage, literally. So we can establish ourselves in this space a lot more easier than somebody who is going to send in their first pitch next year.
Actually, lot of established directors, they just don't know how to navigate, so they come to us with scripts. I mean, so that keeps happening. I mean, everybody wants to get into that space.
Do you think
I
the
think
fact
this is
that
there.
you have had hit films helped you like sell your pitches easier? Like
Yeah,
had
yeah.
you not
Otherwise, nothing would have happened. It would have been just like knock on somebody's door. You have one success and it opens a bunch of doors.
Right.
And then it's the usual game. I mean, like, I don't think that has changed. It's not like somebody's going to recognize a completely cold call, brilliant script, because most probably they wouldn't have even read it.
Right.
So somewhere, some success or somebody who's associated with success will have to push it through for the writer or the director. Or
Actually, just one thing which has been gnawing me for a while. So, every time like we speak of experimental and something which is working, somehow you're not connecting it together. It is like either it doesn't work and it's experimental, or like, because some cutting edge stuff has worked, you just like consider it mainstream. So that bias is kind of like,
once it works, it's not experimental anymore.
Yeah,
Then it
that,
becomes.
because-
mainstream,
By
yeah.
definition, experimental is something that hasn't happened before.
Right.
So once it has
Once
happened,
it
it stops being
works, then you-
experimental anymore.
Right. But I don't think anybody is saying here, at least in this table, that anybody is saying that this is better than the other. I think it's more like, why is this happening and why is that not happening?
see, not better than the other. See, but if just between like each of a show is completely unique and different. I
Yeah.
mean, there's not even like one iota of overlap between any of our shows. I mean, it's like a completely different world. But that doesn't come experimental. So, but somewhere that one mindset is like, if it is very niche or like if it's somewhere like out there kind of thing, then it's experimental. No, that
yeah.
I
In
think
fact,
that's
when Rocket Boys was first announced, even within Sony Live, they thought this was our experimental show.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was completely that. And with Guns and Gulab also, you guys would have heard that being said. No, this is that one show which we are taking the punt on kind of thing. So it's now Guns and Gulab is now mainstream. It's
our effort has been to make experimental mainstream.
Same
If you want to use the word,
exactly.
I mean, exactly. Same here.
use the word,
Absolutely.
like not the definition that DK did, which will eliminate experimental after the first film. But I'm saying anything unique, it doesn't have to be relegated to art film, festival film,
It
experimental
has
film.
to be engaging.
Yeah, and no, let that elements come in to the mainstream. The mainstream gets even more engaging than seeing the same film. I see the same hero, wearing the same different shirt and pants and shoes and glasses in different films. It's the same guy, the same movie done little different. That's it. If the experimental bits make it into a mainstream, suddenly you have an explosive film. So that's how is our.
Actually, that's
Bring
how we
zombies
also
onto the
look
screen
at
mainstream.
But
No, don't even go that far.
as actors, when you choose something for OTT versus something for screen, is there a difference or is it the same thing? Is it are the criteria the same?
For me, the criteria are the same. It depends on the script, it depends on the director, it depends on the producer, it depends on what I think I can do with my role. I feel for a play, a short film, a series, a film, it's more or less, to me, the same criteria that are important. Again, it's the same thing that you're talking about, and we've mentioned earlier. Everyone likes to create verses. Everyone likes to create conflicts between genres, between mediums, between experimental versus mainstream. I don't think that those really exist.
Yes.
I think the quality of a short film methodology or my way of judging it or my way of understanding it is more or less the same to a series. It's about how interesting it is, it's about the development of the character, it's about how information is given to me, when I find the information out.
All that.
Yeah.
I was also going in terms of how the reach of a series, there's a guaranteed reach that a series typically has if it does well. It's going to be much greater than that of a movie. And I thought maybe that some aspect of that may play into.
Does it though? Because I still meet people who say, loved you in Sanju,
Right.
or loved you in Padmavat.
You've got to meet new people.
What I mean is, I don't think that is necessarily true.
I love you in Padmavat, man.
Thanks, man.
Amazing.
No, I'm saying I see your point, but our experience in that was Stree, when we made Stree, was the biggest film we had, right? Like so much. We had somebody gave us a 100 crore club trophy also. I never knew I had there was a 100 crore club. But anyway, so you saw the reach of it and how many people loved it and all that stuff. Family Man beat it hands down in terms of the reach. The way Manoj tells this story that he comes down, I mean, that's just one point. He comes down the same building he's been living for so many years and live by says, sir, selfie. And it's like, BC, all these days I've been here. You're asking me selfie now. So my point is the reach of The Family Man was just it's just changed the way we see series, how far it can reach. So yeah, I mean, maybe depending on the film and the series, I guess, but otherwise.
You want to say something, Sobhita?
What Jim said, I used to think like that until the recent past, but it just occurred to me that while the effort I put in as an actor, or the kind of, my experience might be similar on a film or a show, on a short film, because I'm doing what I'm doing, but I feel like my takeaway, both as an actor and as an audience, is it's quite different. Like, a film feels like a plane, like a Boeing 777. A show is like a rail gadi. It's indulgent. You take time to. I feel like an actor. I mean, credit for great writing, screenplay, direction, all the elements. It goes to the people heading those departments. Great writing, great editing, a fantastic director. what an actor really does is bring meaning to the silences. And I feel like you're allowed that only in shows,
Right.
luxury. And I have hugely benefited from it. So I do see the difference. Yeah.
I'm not trying to say that there's no difference. There's definitely a difference. For me, it's more like he was asking about why you pick something, or why you get drawn to something, or what is your criteria for agreeing to do something. I think that doesn't necessarily change between the mediums.
Yeah.
But you know, having said that, if I were to be given a part that is slightly grey in a film, I would be a little more nervous about it, because there's not enough time to understand their motives or their, I don't know,
The
you
journey.
don't see enough of why they are the way they are.
But
in
that's
a
also
show-
the writing, no? I mean,
But
if
films are so tight na, compared to it. It's so like beats. I feel like with the show,
You, as an actor, sometimes you might have to, you are a grey whatever character and you have 3 scenes. No matter what great
Yeah.
writing is, great actor you are, you might have to fall on a trope that you don't like,
absolutely.
but that is conveying the fastest way to the audience that you were grey or whatever. That trope you fall back on is a little, you know already. You know, I can't think of
using a
anything better.
shorthand.
Yeah.
Yes,
I've-
yes, yes.
I've had
You want to
this
show a mean
personal
guy, you show
experience.
him beating somebody to death and coming and
Yeah,
having
you
a sip
have-
of
yeah,
but
coffee.
I'm
you have
certain
this-
if you read something like that, then it would not excite the actors. Who are
But the
sitting.
movie might be great. Your character overall might be great. You know what I'm saying? The reward in a movie is the box office.
Yeah.
You can see the box office working in this film. You
Yeah.
can see your character being a hit.
Yeah.
But as a character, deep inside, you might not be satisfied with the way you're portraying it. But you're doing it. I know these actors who have done both, and I've listened to them, and I hear that they pack a punch within 30 seconds of what they're shown.
Yeah.
But it's not the satisfying moment.
Yeah.
You will get whistles. You
Yeah.
will say like, "Oh wow, he did great," but he's not feeling good about it.
Of course, yeah, because you have time. In a series, you just have time. That's basically what you were saying.
Yeah,
You
and-
can show, you don't have to show everything in that 30-second scene, which I may have to do in a film. Whereas here, I can show one shade, leave it.
Yeah.
Go to a next scene, show a different one, leave it.
yeah.
And you know, it's just
Sure.
you paint differently, I feel.
Exactly,
In a film, you kind of have to put all of that into that one moment in order to ideally get across a more complicated
Ye-
sense of a 3-dimensional person.
a character like Tara in Made in Heaven, it's a complicated woman, but somehow empathetic. Someone who may or may not be liked, but somehow understood.
Yeah.
And that only happens in a show, in my experience. And I have been offered parts of a similar texture. It's terrifying, the idea of that in a film, because I know it's going to be reduced to a trope. Someone with an agenda who's come in to establish a certain motive or pivot and buy. Nobody cares about you. But in a show, I think that's different.
I think that's also the writing, but you're right. It's like a lot of what you went through in that show, or everybody went through in their shows. I think, you know, there's like, I like that thing that you said. There's more space for silence, that kind of thing. But I think we have to wrap this up. So I'm going to ask you all an existential question. We have, you know, been talking constantly about, you know, people not visiting their theaters as much, and how people are consuming things at home. And in some way, you're all contributing to people sitting at home and consuming more shows, preventing them from going to the theaters in one way or the other. Does this cause sleepless nights?
Okay, just to put that in perspective, I think you're wrong.
Okay.
You compare the theatre footfall from 2012 to 2022. It's gone up so much. I mean, what was the
ticket prices
collection?
haven't gone up actually
in
much.
South, okay, the ticket prices are stabilized. In Tamil Nadu, there's a
120.
like the theatres can't charge whatever they want. It's set by the government.
Oh.
So you compare what the box office collection of a big hero film was in 2012 versus what's it in 2022. Just Tamil Nadu theatrical. See the huge leap in number. There are more people going into the theatres. I think this is a fallacy.
But there are also
which is-
fewer shows
No,
that appeal to that audience, right?
there were 220 films which released in 2012. because of the pandemic, we lost out on some, but 2023 will hit that number. So we are going to have the equal number of films which are releasing in the theatres. I think this is a narrative which has been built wrong. I think there are more people coming into theatre.
And it's not just Tamil, Telugu or
Telugu
Hindi,
has had
everywhere.
great footfall.
So why do we keep hearing this? That
It's because of the pandemic, and I think the wrong reason is being attributed to it, that people are not coming into theatres. They were reluctant during the pandemic and little after that. But Tamil has been doing great this year.
It is like, I mean, when television came up, the same thing will happen.
Television killed the radio star, and streaming killed the television star.
So everything can coexist actually. There's
Yeah,
absolutely no problem.
Yeah,
You guys will have enough and more.
I definitely feel that there are two independent forms of entertainment that can and actually are now coexisting. Yes, there was a window in between where OTT picked up very quickly and you were not allowed to go to theatres thanks to the pandemic. So there was a little bit of a disturbance. But nobody can complain about the box office of 2023.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the number of mammoth hits we've seen this year, right? And OTT has been around, and there have been super hit shows that have been coming as well. I think there are two forms of entertainment. Earlier, you had one form of entertainment where you wanted to watch something on a Saturday evening. You had to go to a theatre, even if you think the movie's an okay-ish film, you probably had to go to a theatre. Today, you have the option of watching something else on screen. So the dynamics of it is changing, like what you would watch in a theatre earlier versus now is changing, but there is content for both, and once it stabilizes, you're going to be waiting for this movie to watch in a theater. Like Oppenheimer, everybody, all of us went and watched in a theater.
I thought it was made compulsory, right?
Yeah, made compulsory too, right?
Like,
and then there are movies you'll not just move. I'm not saying a movie you wait for this. I'm saying you watch an episode of your favorite show at home, and then you look at your watch, you go watch a movie, come back and finish your show, because watching a show, honestly, is like reading a book. You read it at your own peaceful time, and there are certain stories you want to read a book. You may not even want to watch a movie on it, you just want to read a book.
So this is also a Hollywood narrative, which is that...
Or the first 10 pages of a book.
Yeah, I'm glad you remember that. yeah. So I'll quickly read the end, like go to the end and see what it is. Because this is also a Hollywood narrative that earlier there used to be what used to be called the mid-budget movie that was very successful and viable in theaters, that helped make stars of actors like Meryl Streep and all those, like making those movies. Whereas now it's either the extreme indie production or the big mega productions that are theatrically viable. Whereas that mid movie, which is like, that's just like, I don't know, they name these bunch of movies like Dances with Wolves or Driving Miss Daisy or whatever it is. These have kind of been shunted off the production slate.
All our favorite filmmakers, like if you look at them, we don't see their movies anymore. It's all tough for them to make those mid films. Those were the favorite films. Right now it's just superheroes, right? Superheroes and franchise films are the only ones that take over theaters. Where is Forrest Gump? Where is Pulp Fiction? Where is anything? Any of those films are not there anymore. All even,
No, but we get to watch them, is what I'm saying. It's just a different.
You're just watching them elsewhere.
Martin Scorsese is now unabashedly making a 205-minute film because he knows you're going to watch it for a while in theaters, but ultimately you're going to watch it at home anyway. But maybe a few years ago they wouldn't have let him make a 205-minute film, right? Because it has to be in a theater.
It's like cricket. You like cricket, you watch all forms of cricket. You want to play all forms of cricket. T20, one-day test cricket, so they can all coexist.
And I think that is a perfect analogy. It's not like people are not going to the cricket stadiums to watch matches, right?
Yeah.
They do go there, though you have the best of... In fact, it's so much easier to watch cricket on a screen. I mean, like in a stadium, seeing from that distance.
Watch properly.
But people still go. I think cinema is that. It's that the community viewing versus the personal viewing will always exist. And India loves community viewing of everything. I mean, our festivals, our theatre performances. So... movies are also like that.
But you were right about that one aspect of it. Earlier, even personal viewing had to be done in a theater. That part of it is changing. So yeah, the more like a slow burn or a personal feeling film may not make it big in theaters, and you might watch it at home. It's only the dynamics that's shifting, but the business is here to stay. What you're making for which has changed, but you are making stuff for both.
I think the films, the kind of films that you divide, like what do you watch in theater, earlier we were talking about theater versus home, is basically comfort versus effort. Looks like, If you want to put effort into it, you go to theatre, watch this film, your star, your big film, your
There is certain scale. I mean, otherwise, you can
scale,
just
or
watch
even something brand new. I feel one of these days a small film is going to make it so big because it's going to just be so unique. Period. Kantara makes it so big, so well.
Community viewing experience, right? It's something is fun sitting in a group and
you enjoy
laughing together.
Right.
Some things you want to lie in your bed and cry as you watch.
I'm just a little curious about this. So I
DK is
understand.
watching
DK is watching
like some
something.
intense dramas, I guess.
Yeah.
I understand we will go to a restaurant, but we use the food delivery system so that we get food at home. It's almost the same. We get content at our films and shows to watch at a place, and you go to a theatre for an experience. But coming down to the footfalls, I really am curious about that, because the last I heard, the footfalls haven't really increased to that growth. We still have the biggest of our films releasing in 4,500 screens in our country, which is as big as India. That does tell you there's not enough investment to make sure that this kind of carries on and grows. So if there is not money being invested to ensure that theatrical experiences get enhanced, then I'm sure we have something to look at. Because I mean, if I'm not wrong, Bajrangi Bhaijaan was one of the films that had a major footfall, which is about 3.5 crore in a population of 120 crore. That tells you something, that we have still not tapped yet, tapping 1 to 2% of the market. Let's say assume 60% of them are Hindi speaking audiences. It's a huge market that hasn't been tapped, but we haven't seen, I don't see, I'm just curious, I don't see anyone saying, okay, we have to, as an industry, work on these aspects.
I think we need more theatres.
We do.
That is something people from Andhra and Tamil Nadu may not identify
we
with,
don't feel
because
that at all.
we have
in large part of the country there are not enough
And
theatres.
which is why they're not those smaller films, because it's a monopoly then, because there's big players and they get control of these many screens, and which is why OTT became that everyone has an exhibition center, and you thought, this is a space where you could come and do your stuff, which is again getting
and
control.
Goes back to what Sobhita named as a favorite OTT experience, Gulmohar. You know, that's the kind of film today.
I mean, it just struck as unique.
No, but I'm saying, but you're very right, because that's a film that's in a very, very loosely saying, it's a Gulzarian space, let's say. You know, a film like Mausam was actually theatrically released and it did well in the 1970s or whatever it is, you know, Marches or whatever it is, in the 90s. But today, that I don't know if that can sustain in a theatrical format. But of course, I'd love to be proved wrong. Thank you everyone for participating in this. And Jim wants to have the last word. Yes.
I don't know if you all watched Past Lives that came out recently, but again, really small film. I was shocked that it had a run in the cinemas. I have no idea how it did. But I loved that it was released in the cinema and I could go and watch it up there. And I thought it was extremely cinematic and beautiful and worth the theatre trip. But I wonder how it did, because it is like this. It's a much smaller, mid-budget,
I guess
quiet
the fact
film.
that you watched it in Mumbai means it did quite well, right? I mean, it traveled so far.
So it can happen. It can happen.
It can happen. Fingers crossed. Thanks everyone. Seriously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
GT Holidays presents the Galatta Plus Mega OTT Roundtable 2023. This has been shot at Mahati Wellness Center in Bandra. The center offers yoga, Ayurveda, nutrition, posture correction and massage therapy.
Holidays nale adu namma GT Holidays da, South India's #1 travel brand.
Ariza, shirts and trousers.
இந்த ஃபெஸ்டிவல் சீசனை உங்க ஜெயச்சந்திரன் டெக்ஸ்டைல்ஸோட கொண்டாடுங்க.